What's the coolest tool geometry you've helped develop?
Ruger called me in, the gun maker, and the sight dovetails were giving them. They were just having to put a lot of offsets in. They were having to mill them a few times. They were just like, "What can you do?" So I designed a variable pitch dovetail for that application.
Welcome, everybody, to the third episode of Chips and Chat. Today, we have a special guest. I've got Scott Tiehen, who's the National Sales Manager at Core Cutter LLC. He's got a crazy deep background in the cutting tool industry and in innovation and leadership as well. I'm so excited to be here today with Scott. How you doing, Scott?
Hey, I'm doing great. Had a busy week and a lot of people machining out there. We're having fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, Scott, let's talk about your time at Core Cutter. Let's just get right into it. You've been with Core Cutter since early 2023. What was it about the company that drew you to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Core Cutter was developed and actually started in 2017 by a good friend of mine by the name of James Graham. And James and I had done a lot of work in the business in the cutting tool side with another brand together. So, number one, I just have a ton of trust in him. He does all the design work. He does all the grinding, a lot of the grinding. We have other people as well, but with him behind the helm, I just feel super comfortable that I'm out selling the products that are top notch. And I think he and I kind of put it that the band is back together. So I guess you could kind of look at it that way. So that's what drew me there. And it's a family owned, smaller company where we just have no red tape. We get things done fast.
I love it. I love it. So, for those that aren't familiar, because you said Core Cutter's a new company, 8 years old, and they're family operated and family run. So, what's the Core Cutter specialty for those that don't know about Core Cutter really and are really getting their first introduction right now to you guys?
Yeah, that's great. Really, our DNA is the way I like to put it. Our DNA was cut in aerospace. So we are experts with machining aerospace parts, tight tolerances, good finishes. So that's where our experience comes out. When we're with our size, the family owned, and then we have this aerospace experience. What it really comes together as is we can build very intricate specials for the aerospace industry quickly. And that's kind of the whole recipe between us. And with James, like I said, James behind the helm, and then with this DNA, out of the aerospace side of the business, really gives us an edge in that market.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So can you touch on how your team approaches custom tooling? You mentioned aerospace. How does your team approach custom tooling differently than the bigger players in the industry?
Well, one of the things, and I'm going to attribute this back to our size again, Core Cutter is a company that you can actually call and talk to a human again, right? No voicemails. I mean, we love talking to our customers. And what it's kind of turned into that I've noticed since I've been here is, they'll actually call up and say, "Hey, I need to machine this feature. Can you guys suggest a process and a tool for me to save some time, maybe get better tool life or what have you?" So we're actually involved, and I'd say intimately involved with knocking out the feature with the customer instead of just getting a tool print from him and making a tool that he wants. He really wants us to help him design a tool and a process, and we take it, from ground zero up all the way done and ship him a new tool. So I just say that, we make the process really smooth for a customer. And by the time they're done, they're just like, "Oh my gosh, that was so easy with you guys. And the tool's working great." So I think that kind of sums it up with how we approach a special. Now, like I said, sometimes they'll send a part print in to us. Sometimes they'll take a photo of a napkin on maybe a design that they're thinking of, and they just want to know how many flutes we can put in that tool or what have you. So it comes in a variety of ways, but we really put a spin on things when we call them back and say, "Hey, look, here's what we were thinking. What if we approach this feature by milling this part of it first and then coming in and drilling and reaming second?" And they're like, "Wow, that's awesome. Let's do that. Quote me those tools." And then we design them from there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so right now with Core Cutter, like what industries or applications are really driving innovation for you and your company right now?
Yeah, great question again. Boy, these are really good questions. So aerospace is hot right now for us. I mean, it is just busy. The parts are complex in many cases, but the materials are brutal. So we're machining Inconel and Wasp Alloy and Haynes, and those are really tough on cutting tools. The other one that has really taken off for us is medical. We've designed some really good tools and, think about it, for medical parts, everything's small, so we go down to about a 16th of an inch, so we're designing a lot of small diameter tools for, replacement knees, a lot of orthoscopic, products in stainless steel and titanium, and, so I would say that, medical, is starting to really take off for us too. And, we designed actually, it kind of expanded to a standard line of medical tools that we put in our book that have really, just taken the market by storm. So we're really happy about that, but we continue to make a lot of specials for both the aerospace and medical industries.
Awesome. Awesome. So you mentioned, how medical went from kind of a custom end to a standardized end. So let's talk more about, what you're seeing, what trends are happening right now. Like, are you seeing more demand for custom geometries or material specific tools or coding advancements? What are you seeing right now with all of that?
Yeah, you hit it right on the head, Mitch. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We're starting to see, like, if somebody is machining a titanium knee, they want a tool specifically ground for titanium, and they're willing to pay extra for it if they have to. Um, number the reasons for that is, number 1, they're trying to maximize their tool life, and number 2, they really wanna get good finishes typically. So, a general tool, even if it's high performance off the shelf from a lot of good companies out there, will give you a pretty good finish, but they might be looking for something more than that, a better finish. And that's when we start looking at material specific tooling. And most of our specials, we always ask our first question to a customer is, what material are you cutting? Because we're going to really design the rake and the helix and everything for that particular material. So, just to answer the question, I would say that yes, material specific is becoming very popular. Coding advancements have been incredible. We actually have 2 vendors that we work with on coatings. They're high quality coating vendors that, are well respected in their industries, and so we're using the top coatings from them. And I think the material specific geometry in combination with the correct coating is just a winning combination, and we can make all that happen. I mean, we do all the time, and yeah, we usually get really good feedback from our customers about, "Wow, this custom tool just did exactly what I wanted." So, that's kinda what I see going on, but let me just give you one little, topping on that, if you don't mind. The number one trend I see in this business, is JIT. And, I think we can all kind of feel for that. It just seems like nobody has any time anymore to wait. And, yeah, material specific and coatings and all that is a trend, but I see the number one trend in this business is, "Can I get that tool tomorrow?" And, we might have a 3-week delivery on it, but it's like, "I need it tomorrow," and we understand, and we try to get stuff out as quick as possible. So, that's the number one trend.
Exactly, and that I've seen a lot of that myself as well, where, you know what, as a former guy on the shop floor, a former guy purchasing tooling, I needed
Sure.
everything yesterday. And you
That's
know
right.
what? So fortunately, it sounds like you at least you have a 1-day lead time instead of needing it the day before.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I got a buffer there 1 day at least, so, but that's kind of, that's what the trends that I'm kinda seeing, so.
I like it. I like it. Um, so as national sales manager, what are your key focuses for growth this year? Like what are the focuses of your growth?
Yeah, boy, I can nail that down to one major item, and that is standard products. So, we're really good. 70% of our business is custom tooling. We've really built a business on custom tooling, but we put together, in my opinion, one of the best technical catalogs in the business last year. And we did that because we want to really put out a product lineup of standards with a technical manual built into the catalog like it is, giving them all the information they need, and then just really carrying a ton of really good standard products. And, what that does for us is it enables us to run a lot of the standard products lights out overnight. And then we can run the specials during the day when we have our top grinding folks in the building. So my number one focus is to, number one, make sure everybody and their brother out there know of the new Core Cutter catalog. That's so important, and I've gotten a lot of rave reviews about the technical section in that book. And then as a national sales manager is just making all of my distributors and sales technicians out on the road aware of what's in the book and what's unique and how to sell that product off the shelf.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, um, kind of jumping around, you touched on automation and running lights out. So, how do things like automation, AI generated tool paths, or Industry 4.0 change how you support your customers?
Yeah, wow. AI is pretty incredible. I was a little skeptical, early on. I'm a little bit older. I'm creeping up on 60 now. So, um, but
Well,
but
you don't
now
show it.
well, thank you. I've I've been to a lot of training sessions with AI and CAM, and I'm a CAM programmer myself, and I've seen some incredible stuff that AI is actually helping us do and generate toolpaths faster and actually not only faster, but even more efficiently and making toolpaths uh, probably better than they've ever been. So I'm starting to really embrace the AI. But, there's two parts of kind of automation I'd like to talk about. One of them is automating our factory making tooling. And then there's automation that we see out in the customer base of how do we approach that. So number one, let's talk about the customer and the automation going on out there. And we just touched on it with AI. There's no doubt about it that the CAM programs are getting really, really nice with their high efficiency machining tool paths and then incorporated with AI to smooth out any rough areas, increase our tool life, maximize our metal removal rate, which is so important. And, frankly, what it comes down to is our customers now, they're buying a half-inch tool for 70 bucks and they're getting all of they can out of this tool now. Finally, like it's lasting forever. They're pumping out parts quicker than ever. We're happy about that actually. We sell less tools that way, but we're actually making customers more happy with better tool paths. So automation out in the field from a CAM perspective is very, very important to me and to us as a company. Um, Inside our shop, we're starting to buy 5, 6 axis grinders that are all robotic loaded. Now, interestingly enough, it really doesn't take away the labor we need. We still need a person running the machine, but you can imagine when we're loading up, 500 to maybe 2,000 half-inch blanks into a machine and doing those one at a time just isn't efficient and probably tough on a person to do. So a robotic loading system is the way we're going. And again, it enables us to pretty much run standard tooling all night long and replenish the shelves.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, talk to me where you see end mill technology evolving in the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, 5 years ago to now, we've already jumped a light year. And where do you see end mill technology going in the next 3 to 5?
Yeah, I've already seen it. You're starting to see ceramic end mills, solid ceramic end mills for the high temp alloys. I see that probably expanding because I think high temp alloys in aerospace are going to get more and more popular. So I think ceramic endmills is going to be one of them. I think the other thing you're going to start seeing, I'm already seeing quite a bit of it, is HEM tool pass. Let's talk about that just a little bit. It's high efficiency. So normally what you're doing is you're taking a lighter depth of cut faster, and you're removing as much material off this part as possible, and getting it to near net, basically finishing. So what happens is I see these HEM tools requiring more number of flutes and lower flute depths. So you really don't need the old 4 flute with a really super deep flute to take a bunch of chips out, because we're really skimming the part. We're not creating the big and huge flow of chips. We're really throwing them out quickly as we can create them, and they're smaller. So what that means to me is I think we're going to start seeing Endmills go more multiple flutes, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, and then lower flute depths, which means a larger core diameter, and that strengthens the tool. So really what happens at this point is it's just all about machine limitations. So these tools are going to get so strong that you're going to be able to push them pretty much as the machine can.
Oh, wow. That's gonna be really exciting to see.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing
Yeah.
that evolve, um, really in just a short amount of time, as it
Oh,
really
yeah.
is. So now that we've touched on the present and the future, let's start talking about Scott, and let's delve into your past. Let's talk about how Scott became the guy that everyone calls for cutters. So let's rewind to 1987. I was snooping on your LinkedIn profile. You joined the US Navy as a gas turbine systems technician. What did that experience teach you about systems, mechanics, or discipline?
Well, first of all, boot camp taught me to straighten up and not be a punk. So number one. All right. So let's start with boot camp, because I think everybody should go to boot camp for a month or two, and you could decide if you want to stay in after that. So boot camp was great because it really straightened me out. After that, I've always been mechanical. I mean, I've always fixed my own cars. I've always fixed everything pretty much that I've owned. And so when I joined, I really wanted a mechanical kind of job, and, found out and qualified for this gas turbine job. And I've always been pretty intrigued about jet engines and jets. And so, yeah, I mean, pretty much I was a technician for LM 2500 GE gas turbines. And a lot of people are saying, well, what planes are those on? And I said, well, they weren't on a plane. um, the ships that I took care of were actually propelled by gas turbine engines as main propulsion units.
Oh,
So
wow.
the smaller ships, and these were FFGs, they had 2 LM 2500s down in the hull. And, they're pretty much box contained and fire contained and all that. But we would run 2 LM 2500s on a 400-foot FFG, and we could be doing 18 knots in that ship. So it was pretty amazing. And not only did I work on the gas turbines, but we also, like anything else in the Navy, you kind of take care of all the support equipment too. So all the water cooling, all the fuel transfer, all that kind of stuff. So we were rebuilding pumps and piping and valves and stuff all the time on these ships. And so, yeah, that gave me a lot of experience. And if you've ever felt a 400-foot ship doing about 18 knots and trying to do the tightest circle it's ever done and vibrating from front to back like you think it's going to explode, then you should have been with me in 88, 89. It was pretty incredible. But the key to the gas turbine ship, and I don't want to get too far off track, is that we could be moored up on the pier. As long as we had a skeleton crew, we could be lit off one gas turbine off the pier in 8 minutes
Oh,
for
wow.
any kind of wartime event. So, one of the advantages to that gas turbine, because these were all steamships in the old days, one of the advantages here was quick. We could be underway quick if there was any kind of threat. So, yeah, that's what I decided to do, and I ended up just loving it. And, I mean, they called me a snipe. I was down in the hole, and I didn't get to come up and breathe fresh air very often, but that's my kind of world. I like that.
That's really awesome. Well, thank you for serving our country. That's really cool and really cool to hear, the unique experiences. I don't think a lot of
Yeah,
people know that there's gas turbine powered ships. That's
exactly.
some really, really cool knowledge that you just
Yep.
shared because I had no clue of that either.
Yeah. And real quick, if you don't mind, Mitch, I just wanna I put something in your head and your viewers. Think about a gas turbine, engine, which is spinning at, 60, 70,000 RPMs. Both engines are going into a reduction gear to one propeller shaft. I mean, the propeller shaft's only turning at about, maybe 20 RPMs. So we have to reduce 60,000 down to 20. And think about the gearing in the reduction gear that has to go on for that. The reduction gear was almost the size of my first house, which was small, but it was big.
That's
So
incredible.
yeah, the bowl gear on that reduction unit was almost like, I think, 10 foot in diameter to reduce that RPM down to shaft RPM.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
anyway,
that's
just a little,
absolutely incredible.
yeah, little
I
tip there. So
I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate you sharing
yeah.
that. So then let's fast forward post service. You step into manufacturing, immediately leaving the Navy, and you go to a company called Precision Twist Drill. What was it like diving right from the Navy straight into carbide applications in the early 90s?
Yeah, yeah, good question, and man, that was such a great job and a great company. Um, so what happened was, coming out of the Navy, because I was kinda ready to get out at that time, and, I applied. I actually drove by the sign at Precision Twist Drill, which was kind of, if anybody remembers the old Precision Twist Drill, it was kind of a micrometer, with precision name in between it, and it just caught my attention, and it was kind of out in the city that I was living at the time. And I just popped in on a cold call. I was getting out in about 30 days and, just popped in there and said, I have a extensive background with AutoCAD, and, popped in and said, "Hey, do you guys need any help? I'm getting out of the Navy here in about 30 days." And they said, "Well, what are your skills?" And I said, "I'm a heck of an AutoCAD drawer, so I can do that and I can fix anything." And they said, "Hang on 1 minute." And so left me in this little cubicle or a little, entryway. And this guy comes out and, basically he said, "I need an AutoCAD specialist right now." And I said, "Wow, I could do it." I had no idea what they needed to do, but, what ended up happening was, it kind of started with one thing morphed into another. This place had been around since the 40s or 50s designing drill bits, high speed and cobalt, and all their drawings were in pencil. So they basically needed somebody to create a whole CAD library with all of their product SKUs. And that's what I ended up doing because, I forget the exact age I was at the time, but, computers were just start coming on. MS-DOS was around. I was familiar with it. AutoCAD was around. So, it was early on, but I was able to kind of pull it off. So I created their entire CAD library for over 4 or 5,000 SKUs. And, that ended up being, kind of venturing into, carbide design and machine design. I started automating pointing machines for those, pointing. We had a ton of Winslow pointing machines and just, it kind of morphed like, whenever you're with a company and you're willing to learn and you pick up stuff quick, there's all kinds of jobs that you tend to kind of go after. And so that's how it started. And it ended up, got my sales degree and went out to sales. That's what
Awesome.
got me into sales. So
So that was really getting your feet wet just based on a cold call. That's awesome.
yeah, it really was.
So then you work at Precision Twist for a while, and then you go over to Kennametal, and you go there during a real critical time in tooling. What innovations or challenges do you remember most while with your time at Kennametal?
Kennametal was kind of interesting because they actually came after me. I was doing really well, Precision Twist had sent me to Arizona. I was just I think I was killing it. I was really green, but man, I was selling drill bits like crazy all over that place. And, I knew the Kennametal guy, around the area and was we were competing and what have you, and he was getting ready to advance up and move. So they kind of came after me and asked me if I wanted to fill the spot. And, what intrigued me about them was number one, they're American. I really enjoy American companies. Um, and number two is, even though I was really in charge of the round tool uh, products in that area, I got to dabble and really learn more about indexables, which I needed. I wanted to find out more about indexables, and I ended up helping people with indexables too. I wouldn't necessarily say I was the indexable guru there, but a lot of the customers that I knew with drilling and all that, they were like, Scott, I need an indexable boring bar for this. Can you figure one out for me? And, I mean, when you just want to learn about everything, I said, heck yeah, I will. Give me a day or two. I'll come back with an answer. And I ended up learning a lot about indexables with Kennametal. And it really was a good company. And boy, oh boy, they had some really good products at the time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know Kennametal is definitely one of the industry standards in the USA now.
For sure.
Um, so you spent some time there, and then you jumped around and you end up at Harvey Performance, where you led sales and innovation. How did you balance fostering innovation while scaling growth?
Well, so, interestingly enough, when, Kennametal, had a big layoff, back in the slowdown, I forget what years that exactly was, but, I was kind of a little nervous about that. So I ended up finding a company called Helical Solutions at the time, and, it kind of morphed into what you called Harvey Performance, but, they needed a national sales manager, at Helical. So what happened was, um, I s I called the owner, and it was a small family-owned company out of Maine, and he said, "Yeah, I'm kinda looking for a national sales manager," and he goes, "But I want one that's technical, like, I don't want just a sales guy, I'd really want somebody that can run an end mill," and I said, "Hey, look, I can do both, I'll run an end mill, I'll have meetings, I'll do whatever you want. I mean, I can design a tool, run a tool, meet with people about a tool." So, it worked out really well. Well, they ended up selling out to a company, a private equity group, but they ended up calling it Harvey Performance Group. And then I kind of moved from the national sales into an innovation role. So what happened was they the private equity group understood that I had been at Helical for, 10 years plus and knew a lot about the geometries and just the market in general. So they said, "We want you to be the VP of innovation for the helical side of our business." And so what ended up happening is we ended up looking at a bunch of coolant fed tooling, multi-fluided tooling, material specific tooling I started getting into and kind of coordinating and what have you for the helical side of the Harvey Performance Group. And, that just was really fun because, I could use my creative thinking and then I could pull my distributors and customers out there and saying, "What do you guys need? What do you guys need from us?" And so a lot of those ideas came from actual customers, and I would just make it happen in the background with the company, and, like I said, we've launched a lot of good products, so hope that answered your question.
Oh yeah, it really, really did. And so that's really cool. So, you've jumped around a few different companies, and then you go to GWS Tool Group after that. And how did that experience, that's your last experience before you end up at Core Cutter. And how did that experience help prep you for your role at Core Cutter?
Yeah, the main reason, I switched from Harvey Performance over to GWS is I really wanted to get with a company that was building custom tools again. Um, Harvey Performance does build customs, but, not as many as like a GWS tool, and, I really like solving problems at the spindle, and I just like working on tough tooling, and so GWS had an opening, and I was a VP of the West Coast, so pretty much everything west of the Mississippi, and, started, dove in like crazy with them, and, man, we were, just pretty much satisfying specials for a whole, periphery of customers, and they ended up buying a lot of companies in my area too, a tapping company and a drilling and a milling company, so I ended up, really kinda managing a lot of other stuff than just end mills, which was kind of really interesting. Look, I always look at stuff that can kind of broaden my experience too. And they did that for sure. They exposed me to threading and a lot of other things that I needed much more experience with. So, and in the end, they ended up selling out to Walter Group, and that's when I found Core. So, simple as that. Great company though.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your history of how you go from the Navy to, Mr. Endmill yourself,
Yeah.
if I might call you that.
No, that's
Um,
great. I love it. I love it.
so let's have a lightning round, just some quick rapid fire questions. What's your
Perfect.
favorite machine shop smell? Everybody has that favorite machine shop smell. What's yours?
Coolant. I love the smell of coolant and good coolant, not
Good
bad
coolant.
coolant.
Yeah.
Good
Everybody's
coolant.
walked into one of those shops where they've smelt that old coolant. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Absolutely.
Just that familiar
Absolutely.
smell where all those chips are being made and that coolant's in the air. Yeah, I
You
know
know,
that.
funny story, I'll walk into a shop, this has happened numerous times, and we'll walk in and the gentleman's really ready to show me this milling feature, and I look at him and I say, "Your coolant smells good," and he'll just like random, he'll go, "What?" And I said, Good coolant." And,
I
he's like,
love it.
"Really?" And I said, "Yeah, it smells good in here." So, anyway.
I love it. What's the coolest tool geometry you've helped develop?
Yeah, so, this was kind of fun. This goes back about, I don't know, a few years, and, Ruger called me in, the gun maker, and, the sight, dovetails were giving them, they were just having to put a lot of offsets in, they were having to mill them a few times. Um, they they were just like, "What can you do?" So I designed a variable pitch dovetail for that application. Obviously put a little more rake into it for the material specific and what have you. So I actually took quite a bit of time out of that, but what they really loved about that situation was they didn't have to set any offsets. The tool lasted a whole long time, and, I ended up saving them about $25,000 just with that one tool. So
Oh,
it really
wow.
worked out well. Yeah, it was really a good success, and, they frankly didn't have to buy very many of them. So, which was actually a good thing because I made them very happy.
That's awesome. And what's the best place the cutting tool world has ever taken you?
Well, that's number 1, I can say it was England, um, and I went there for a purpose. This was back in the helical solution days. I was actually involved with the, 2015 Boeing, uh, Industry Challenge. So, I actually was sent out there. James Graham, who owns Core Cutter, made the tools at Helical at the time, and I basically delivered them to England, and Boeing was doing a really interesting, industry challenge between about, I think I wanna say about 6 to 8, uh, end mill companies. Names were not published. Tools were made and no brand names could be on shanks. And we all had to stay within a certain envelopes, you know, uh, dimensional envelope for the tool. We could put our own rakes and these kind of things in that we wanted, but it had to have a certain flute length, a certain overall, certain diameter. And then we went over and we all machined, uh, pretty much the same part, but we could use our own cutting parameters, and they were going to pick the winner, um, based on performance, metal removal rate, and tool life. And so, it's an interesting challenge. I mean, that was for me, it was a big eye opener. There's a huge testing facility out there in England and in Sheffield, I believe. And what was really interesting about this and what I liked about it is they didn't put any brand names in on the tools. So it was very, just, I don't know what to say, like very fair, no brand name preference. And the other thing that was interesting is they also didn't announce the winner. They did not announce the winner. They said that they would let the brands know of the top 3 that made it. They'd let them know individually, and that was it. So, I thought the way they set that up was really nice, and I think it was really fair, and they just wanted production from it. They just wanted to see who could really do the best. and I thought they set it up. So that was really my biggest thing in the cutting tool industry, and that was in 15. And again, England basically. And yes, I did rent a right-hand drive car, and it was confusing as all get out. I'll never do that again.
Just take a taxi next time, huh?
I got stuck in a roundabout going around and around. I couldn't get out of the thing, and people were honking, and oh my lord, it was so confusing sitting on the wrong side of the car. It was crazy. So
Well, I'm
yeah.
glad they finally got you out last week.
That's right. That's right.
Oh,
Uh,
so now let's talk about, you know, let's talk to the people that are up and coming in the industry. What advice would you give to somebody who's entering the cutting tool industry today?
a couple of things. Number one, have a passion for it. If you're going to come into the industry, really have a passion to cut metal, make good parts. It is so satisfying when you're able to produce a really nice part and the customer's happy, and it could be for anything, motorcycles, snowmobiles, airplanes. I mean, you're making parts for all this stuff that we're all buying and using out here. You know what I mean? And if you take pride in it and really enjoy it and go into it with a passion, you are going to be, you're going to excel quickly in this business. And, so that's number one, is have passion for it. Number two is understand what you're doing. Like, it's a stickler for me. Like if I'm fixing something, I want to really understand what I'm fixing. If I'm machining a feature, I really want to understand what the material is, what this part is used for. Are these finishes critical? Just understand what you're doing. So passion, understanding, I think is very important. And then, I think the last thing is, networking, and I would always put a spin on it to know programming. I think the future in our business is going to be the more software and programming, um, strategy and just familiarization you have is going to help you in the long run. I mean, I get it that the old verticals with the turn handles and all that, we need to know how to do that. We need to smell, use our eyes and all that. But let's face it, these CNC machines nowadays are running all from programs. So even if your intent is not to be a programmer, I think it's really good to have a good understanding of programming. So that way, when you're digging into a part or, maybe a problem with a part that you're machining or whatever, at least you'll kind of understand, wow, I wonder if this is using, a parallel offset tool path. Is this using, just so you'll be familiar with it. And I would just say that would be really important. So again, let's just kind of uh, go back over that, is passion, understanding, and maybe a good experience with the CAM side of the business, and really understanding how to program parts. I always say in this business, and this is probably the most rudimentary thing that you can learn in this CNC machine shop is, and I'm going to use my fingers here, but number one, the machine um, has to have a CAM program to do anything, right? So the machine is useless without a program. Number two, you got to have the program to tell the machine what to do. Number three, the tool is just a rider. It's just along for the ride. So if you think about that simply, is the CAM program, the machine, and then the tool. If and when you're troubleshooting, you got to think about that. Let me go back to the CAM system and see if there may be a tool path issue that I need to relook at. Number two, machine wise, could we have maybe some issues with the taper cleanliness, with bearings, any of that kind of stuff? And number three, finally, the tool. I mean, yeah, there is a chance where the tool might have an issue, but so I think those troubleshooting methodology is really important. And that kind of goes back with understanding what I said, number two, is just really simplifying things. Because if you simplify things, I guarantee you'll probably figure out an issue much quicker than trying to just complicate the whole issue. So those are my 3. Hope I didn't ramble.
Oh, no, that was invaluable information. I think that
Sure,
everybody that's listening can definitely take from that and apply that today to what they're doing and the processes that they're doing. To think of those 3 things in combination to really troubleshoot and get effective results. I love that.
sure, sure.
And, so just kinda wrapping up, how can listeners connect with you, learn more about Core Cutter, or get a chance to try out your products and see what Core Cutter can really do for them in their shop?
Yeah, so, the best way to reach out to me is my email is Scott, SCOTT, at corecutterusa.com. We also have a website, it's corecutterusa.com, they can go to as well, and then my number is 480-209-2239. That's my cell number. I'm open. Don't tell my wife this, but I'm open 24/7 for any tech assist. Um, and yes, my phone does ring at night, for speeds and feeds. So, look, I mean, I think in this business, you and I said it, Mitch, JIT is everything. Our customers are making parts 24/7. There's guys in machine shops at night, and they don't want to wait till 8 o'clock the next morning when the tool sales guy arrives. So I say call me anytime. I'll answer it if I can, and I'll get you speeds and feeds. And then I cannot encourage everybody enough to grab the latest Core Cutter catalog. I've got kind of a picture of it here. I don't know if you can see it. Probably gets blurred out a little bit, but Mitch can has some of those. And if you don't have a copy, it's probably the best fireside reading you'll ever find.
I love it. You know what? That catalog really is technical and invaluable. I do have to
Thank
comment
you.
on that myself. That catalog can make anybody look smart, including myself. So,
Well,
I
I
appreciate
appreciate
that.
it. Yep.
Well, Scott, I can't thank you enough for all the time. This has been an absolute blast. And to everyone watching Chips and Chat, can't thank you all enough. Tune in for the next episode. You never know who's going to pop in and what we're going to talk about. See you on the next episode of Chips and Chat.